Hello, everybody. I am Steve, and I'm here with my wife Brandy and some friends that will introduce themselves here in a second. And we are here to talk about River of Thieves by Clayton Snyder. And it just so happens that Mr. Snyder is here this morning with us to chat about the book.
Yep.
We're going to go around the room and everybody introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Stacy from Stacy's All Booked. I have a channel here on YouTube, and you mostly will see me on live streams. I love to read fantasy, and I can't wait to talk about this book.
Hello, I'm Ashley. My channel is Read Now Sleep Later. I read a variety of things, varying from horror novels to dinosaur smut. So I'm making a really great impression here, Mr. Snyder. I apologize. But yeah, I love to read and I love talking about books.
I'm Clayton Snyder, and I'm the author of River Thieves and a few other books. That's about it. I write. So.
Yes, right.
Yeah, right. So River of Thieves was a book that we planned to read together. And so we all read it, and then we were coming here today to chat about it. And after reading Beyond Redemption and The Mirror's Truth, and then reading River of Thieves, I am even more excited because I can't imagine what you and Michael Fletcher together would pump out. It's going to be nuts. So I'm super excited to read that next. But
Awesome.
yeah, it's it's going to be great. So I'm really excited about that one again. But so what did everyone think about the book? Stacey, you want to kick us off? I knew you would like this book. I knew as soon as I started reading, I knew Stacey would like it.
Yeah, so originally I hadn't planned to read this. I had so many other buddy reads in August that I was like, I'm just not going to get to that. But Steve told me, he's like, trust me, you're going to love this book. And then Brandy had even mentioned that she liked it a lot. So per Brandy's recommendation, I read it while I was listening to the audiobook, and it is so funny. I gave it 4 stars. It's an excellent story. By far, though, my favorite part is just how ridiculous it is, to the point. I think in my review on Goodreads, I said it was like a Monty Python movie. It was just ridiculous, but on purpose. And I laughed out loud multiple times. But it was still a really good, fun story. It wasn't just about the comedy. The comedy just made it that much better to read. And it was really perfect because we had been reading a lot of really dark fiction lately, whether it be horror or dark fantasy. And so this was dark, but had a lighter side to it, much like The Black Tongue Thief, which is why I like that one so much, because it had a dark, good story, but the humor kind of gave it a little bit more of a lighthearted feel. So yeah, I loved it. It was really good.
I agree. I was reading some pretty heavy stuff, and it was just such a refreshing, nice break from heavy. I mean, there were some heavy moments in it, which I loved, but it was just so funny. The chapter name, every chapter name, every single one was just I loved it. And it's my kind. I'm sorry, but it's my kind of humor. So I was just like, man, I love this book. And the audiobook was stellar. I liked it.
I just want to mention you had me at yo ho ho bitches.
Yeah, that was my favorite line of the whole book.
So Ashley, you want to give us your thoughts?
Oh yeah. Like Brandy said, I was definitely reading some heavy stuff. And so reading this, it's like it gave me the fantasy I was craving, but at the same time, it was just so comedic and it made me smile. And I really enjoyed, I felt like sometimes you broke the fourth wall and made some like modern references. And I was just freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh, no way. This is so cool. And I have to say, if I had to pick a character, to be honest, just the whole crew is my favorite, but I don't know. I haven't decided yet.
So, Mr. Snyder, what kind of went into the book? What were your inspirations? What was the process for it?
Oh, that book was just a mishmash of everything in my head. You know, like you mentioned, there was Python. There's Seinfeld in there. There's oh Lord, there's some Pratchett. There's a little bit of everything. Just anything that struck me as funny at the time went into the book, and then you know the characters themselves had to have some life between them. So I watched a lot of ensemble stuff, and I watched you know, one of my favorite scriptwriters is oh, his name just went completely out of my head. Shane Black.
Oh yeah.
So Lethal Weapon and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and all that, and I love the way his characters interact and the dialogue, and I wanted to do that with this book too. So
Yeah, it was definitely a vibe of you love these people, but you love to give them shit, which is like our whole marriage.
Yeah.
It's true.
I loved it.
So how long did it take you to come up with the chapter names? Because I think I laughed out loud at every chapter name. Every single one I laughed out loud.
I think I did that in a night. After I'd written the book, I just sat down and did, you know, remembered what was in the chapters and gave them a name. So
It was great. And it always was something that was like a foreshadowing of something that was going to happen in the chapter. So I was always excited to see what? When's that going to come up? And it was great.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Stacey. Go ahead.
I was going to say that was something I look forward to at the end of a chapter. Was what is the chapter going to be called? The best.
And I'm not an audiobook. Usually I just don't enjoy audiobooks, but I hear from everyone. I think, Ashley, I'm not sure if you read or listened, but Stacey, I think you listened. I know you listened.
I did both. Yeah, I read and listened.
So what went into the audiobook? Was it, how was that process?
I actually put the book up on ACX for auditions. I ran across a narrator who was willing to do a share. So he started reading, you know, sent me the first couple chapters, I think it was, and I was sold. His delivery was perfect. His, you know, his kind of wry sense of humor that went along with it. So, and from there it was just, you know, I'll admit, I don't think I've actually heard the whole audiobook myself. So, yeah.
It was good. I will say that it was a little odd because it threw me off in the beginning when because it's, you know, narrated in the first person. So it threw me off in the beginning when I found out that the person I was following was a female with a male narrating. Yeah. So it took me a while to get used to that because I kept picturing in my head a male character. But he did a great job though delivering the you could almost see the deadpan in most of the jokes, you know, where that's why it was so funny because he delivered it as if deadpanning, if that makes sense, you know, without seeing his face, obviously. And so it just was good. I really enjoyed the audiobook.
Good.
Ashley, you didn't listen to it, right?
No, I read it on Kindle, which was pretty great because I think if I was holding like the actual physical book, I'd have a hard time turning the pages because I wouldn't be able to turn them fast enough. So I'm just sitting here on my phone, like swiping, like as just consuming the whole thing.
I think you had the same comment to me. Is this a male or female main character?
When I first read, because he was ahead of me, when I first started listening, I didn't have my Kindle out. And I was like, wait a minute, is this a dude? And I was like, no, it's a chick. There's dudes in this story. And it was the first time I've heard an audiobook in the first person and I actually like it a lot better for some reason. And I'm listening to another one right now where it's a female perspective, but it's in the third person. But their dialogue is a male voice, and I actually have a better appreciation for it. It wasn't so weird to me after listening to this one.
You know, I ran across some of my notes last night, and one of them just said first or third person, and then underneath that I had written scream. So I wasn't even sure at the time what I was going to write the book in. So.
It was funny because when I finally realized it was a woman, the character said, "But but I'm a woman. She's telling, I can't remember the names. I'm really bad. I think it was, she's telling, so Nen is the character. What is the guy's name that in the
Court?
very beginning that she
Court?
killed?
Oh, Court.
Huh?
Yep.
Court. So he wants her to do something. She's like, but I'm a woman. And I'm like, what? And so I thought, well, maybe is she a shift changer? Or is he dressed like a woman and he's making a joke? So it always added some humor for me because I was imagining this guy dressed like a woman and him fooling the guards thinking he was a woman. But and then I finally was like, it took me a minute. I was like, wait a second. I think it's just the narrator that's a man. But it was exciting, to say the least.
Was that intentional to be to kind of leave the reader guessing on whether it's a male or female at the beginning?
Not especially. It hadn't really crossed my mind until the feminine wiles joke, and then then it kind of Nen's outrage at why me. So but yeah, as far as the audiobook goes, I did kind of think it would be funny to have a man narrate a woman's role. So
It was great. I don't know. I keep saying that, but I felt that way. It was a very entertaining audiobook.
When I was reading it, so Brandy had read it prior to Ashley and I. And so I kept, every time I would laugh out loud, I had to highlight the line and then take a picture and send it like, oh my God, this is just hilarious. I mean, just some of the jokes in it. It's like you cannot get funnier. It was great. I can't say enough about how much I laughed during this book.
Yeah, whenever I read a book, I'm always looking for like it to give like a reaction from me. And nothing wrong with books that don't get a reaction, but just reading this book was very like, what? Like that, just the interest and intrigue. I was like hyper focused on. It was awesome. Especially the parts in the book with the creepy spider, and then that was hilarious. And the golem. So I lied. If I had to choose those, the golem would probably be my favorite.
Poor Elvis.
Poor Elvis.
The spider. I think the spider is going to end up etched on my tombstone. I'm never going to live that thing down. So.
Or the whistle at the end.
The whistle. Yes.
It was a joke.
Yeah.
Then she ends up with this whistle. And you just have this mental picture. If you need me, blow this whistle. And
I know. I think the name of the title on that one was like, I'm not putting my mouth on that or something like that. No, those are the best. Like I could just go through the Kindle and just read the titles of the chapters if I ever needed a giggle.
Just read the chapter titles. So, are all your books similar humor, or is this ratcheted up a little bit, or all of them have the same kind of tone?
No, River of Thieves is really on the extreme end of the spectrum. All of my books have some amount of sarcasm or satire to them. So there's River of Thieves. There's Thieves War, which they're matched, and they probably keep the same level of ridiculousness. The next closest would be Demons Inc., which is kind of a noir urban fantasy, but the main character is very mouthy, very sarcastic. And then after that, it gets real dark. So, like if you went into Obsidian Psalm expecting the same thing that you got out of River of Thieves, you're not going to find it.
I'm really looking forward to reading the other book that I saw. It looked pretty similar to the cover of River of Thieves. I think you just said it. I think it's Demons Inc.
Mm-hmm.
But it was one of those that like after I finished River of Thieves, it popped up and I was like, ooh, So, but is there going to be a second book following River of Thieves, or
There,
is there
yeah, there actually is. It's called Thieves War. It's been out for
Thieves?
about a year and a half. So yeah, it's not as well known. People seem to still enjoy it, but yeah,
Is there a audiobook for that one?
there is not. I've kind of fallen off of doing audiobooks. To be honest, I didn't sell a lot of audiobooks of River of Thieves, and since we did a profit share, I felt really bad for the narrator. So I had a hard time asking him back, you know.
Man, that's a bummer because that audiobook is top notch.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, he did a fantastic job.
It sounds like audiobooks are really tough, especially for indie authors, because it sounds like they're really expensive. They're really time consuming. That's got to be frustrating.
Yeah, well, you know, when you do a profit share, it's not real. There's really no cost out of your pocket. But the problem is that the narrator is expecting as well to be paid. You know, you split whatever profits you make, and if you're not selling those audiobooks, they're not making any money either, and it kind of hurts them as well. So that's the hard part for me.
Yeah, it's too bad. But one of my I have a few tabs here, but one of my highlights was on page 178 when the bartender says, "What do you have?" and the thief says, "Give me all you got." The bartender drops his pants. The thief looks disappointed, points at the lockbox and says, "I'm gonna need change."
I remember.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's so great.
So many of those jokes, they took forever to write. You know, you'd write one version and then you'd have to go back and you'd have to rewrite it, and you'd have to rewrite it again until people were laughing. That was the trick. Until your beta readers were like either crying or shouting at you in some way on Discord, then you knew you had hit that joke on the head. So,
And how do you choose? I'm sorry, Stacey, go ahead.
I was just gonna say there were some like dad jokes in here, and I think some of those were my favorite because they were just so. Or when Quirk would always what's the word? What's the word when you like have sayings or things like that? But he would always get them like really wrong, like the wolf one. Show a man a wolf and he'll run away. Make a man a wolf and he'll pee on your carpet or something like that.
Exactly. No, Cord's adages are the worst.
Adage, that's it. Thank you. Yeah, his adages were. I liked those too because those were funny. But that's what I liked. I think Ashley was talking about bringing in some modern stuff, and it was that kind of thing. Just a lot of those adages were very modern, but the fact that he kept getting them wrong just added to the hilarity of it. Yeah.
And Stacey had a few highlights that you posted on Goodreads.
Oh my
God. The cigar one was one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, that was one of my favorites too.
Which one?
About a woman smoking a cigar.
Oh, okay. Let me hold on. I don't have it up right now. Do you have it up, Steve?
I don't. I can pull it up here in a second.
I'm trying to pull mine up. My daughter has my phone, so I can't grab my
No,
Kindle.
here it is. I learned a long time ago that a woman smoking a cigar in public was like a man with a dick on his forehead. People remember that shit. The funny thing is this is before she meets the golem, who literally has two.
Yeah, Elvis was the answer to the question, how many dick jokes can I fit in this book?
What made you think of putting him like for his eyeballs though? Like, was there anything specifically that inspired you? Like those little glasses that have the eyes that.
Exactly. Yeah. Those old glasses with the eyes that boggle.
Yes.
And that's the first thing I thought of was, well, that'd be funny. And thankfully it worked out. So
it was amazing.
So many dick jokes.
So many.
I
You
mean,
know, at one point I stopped and I asked my beta readers, I said, is this too many? And one of them actually shouted at me, no more. So
That would be me. I'd say that too.
And
How
how do you
many
choo- how do you
phallic
choose your
jokes?
how do you choose your beta readers?
they're basically just other authors that are good friends of mine. You know, we all kind of work on each other's stuff back and forth. For this book, it was, Angela Board, Crystal Matar, Luke Tarzian. I want to say there was one more, maybe David Wolscroft read a little bit as well. So we've been a fairly tight knit group for a couple of years, and we go back and forth on each other's work. So.
I love offensive humor. I'm just an offensive person, so I don't know. It just was like right up my alley. My kids are always telling me I have a potty mouth, so.
Well, the biggest thing I wanted to do with this book was make sure I was punching up. You know, I didn't want any of the humor to be cruel or condescending or anything like that. But so everything that's in that book that is aimed at someone else or another group is always my version of punching up at authority or a power or whatever. So
I think that's my favorite ensemble type is the thief group. I think every book that I've read that in I've liked. I don't think there's one I haven't, unless it was poorly done. But so when other than Steve and Brandy telling me how hilarious it was, when I saw that it was that kind of, thieves getting together group, I'm sold. Like I didn't even need you guys to tell me it was funny once I actually found out what it was about. And I really like, even though it's one of the funnier things in the story, the magic systems are very interesting. I'm interested in reading the second book just because of that, because I want to know more about that. Although the bonus will be more laughs. But can you tell us a little bit? I mean, there's two different types of magic here. You have the harrowers, and then you have whatever Court and Lux, how they've been cursed. They were cursed by something. No, they're cursed by the harrowers, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So
and then you have the harbingers. Is the harbingers? Am I getting these names wrong?
That's the vessel with, right?
See, now I don't remember.
I'm sorry. I should have been
It's contagious.
So basically, real simple for me was it was two magic systems. One is the wizards who they can learn it. Anybody can go and study to be a wizard, but it's hard. It's very difficult and it might kill you. So that's why not everybody is a wizard. Obviously, it did kill Lux. It wasn't great for her. She came back. She got better. Now, as far as the harrowers, they're confined to one very specific skill set, and that is they can reach into the realm of nightmare and make your nightmares come true. Which is, nobody really understands why anybody tolerates them, but mainly because of that reason, I guess, is why they're still around. And that's the extent of their power. I mean, they can't throw fireballs. They can't, summon dragons or anything like that, but they can make really unpleasant things happen to you. So.
Yeah, because there's nothing worse than drowning in piss.
Right.
I just feel so bad for Ferd. That poor guy.
Was Ferd the tomato?
The guy.
Yeah, he's the one.
From before.
He's the one that had like a bunch of eyes on his ass, and so every time he would try and sit down, they'd scream.
Oh, that's right.
Listen, I read this book one time, and that stuck in my mind. I don't know why.
I always get comments on tomato as well, so that's where my brain went immediately. The poor guy that got cursed with a tomato head. So.
Oh, that was when they go. So Cord and Lux, and then they go see the fence, which is like, yeah, okay, yeah.
And then he's like, tastes delicious.
Oh man.
There
not
really
wrong.
is a story here. Anybody who's watching this, there is a story in this book, but the humor, we could talk forever about that.
That's what I love, though. It's like it delivers a lot of dark things, especially with Cord being the way he is. And then just the kind of a little bit of a romantic interest between other characters. I'm trying to be really vague.
Right, we're spoiling things here.
I'm not spoiling.
No, we can spoil.
Oh, we
Spoil
can?
away.
I don't know. I want people to like read it and be like, "The fuck." That's what I'm looking for.
You already
So,
told them about the penis spider.
they don't know where it's at. They don't know what page.
They just know it is.
Yeah, they just know that like you gotta give little tidbits to reel people in, you know. But yeah, I really enjoyed that, and I enjoyed especially the part where Cord and then they go on this kind of like journey. I can't remember if it was that they meet the wizard, and this is when they meet Elvis. And just like that whole situation, and then the army of the undead, like it just had so much stuff that I want more of it. Like I wish, if it was a play, I would be in the first row seat.
Yeah, same here.
So
And there were just so many cool aspects, like the boat with the engine that like teleported them to places. It was just, it was a mishmash of stuff, but by no means did it feel like it wasn't seamlessly put together.
Mhm.
And it was just, you never knew what was going to happen. So it was very unpredictable in a good way. But there were also some very predictable elements that I think were on purpose in order to build the humor, right? Some very obvious things like when they go to that place with the priests, I don't remember if they were called priests or not. Yeah, the cult, like all of this, that was all very cliche, but you're on purpose. It was on purpose. You could tell it was on purpose because it built up to the story. It built up to the story. But I think what made it so amazing is you got the world building literally as the characters are traveling this world. And that's one of my favorite ways of reading fantasy. I don't want to be info dumped. And a lot of times it's unavoidable, especially if your characters never leave where they're at and you need to know what's going on outside of it. Sword of Kaigen is one of those examples. But you did such an amazing job with letting the characters show you the world as they're moving through it. Especially a lot of places that Cord is going to are different than the last time he was there. So it's not him, oh, I know this, and he's telling people things they should already know, or people are telling him things he should already know. He's still kind of exploring the world again because he hasn't been to a lot of these places recently. So I thought that was very well done. And same with the magic system. You were never told anything more about the magic system than you need to at the very beginning, and then the rest of it is just, this is what I can do. And you're like, oh, okay, you can do a lot. Thank you very much.
I'm really interested in the whole makeup of Lux. Like, there's some things that were said when you were describing her, and I'm like, wait, why is she sucking the life force out of these people? But yet, like, I don't know, I get so intrigued by the character backgrounds, and probably obsessed is the word I'm looking for, to be honest. But it was really cool. And I mean, each character had their own little thing. Yeah.
So there's a line that Lux gives that was one of my favorite. Hold on, let me see if I can get it really quick. And this is, not even a sophisticated joke. No, I'm not saying that in a bad way, but it was friggin' hilarious the way it was delivered. So they're talking about if anybody believes in, or if anybody feels religious. And Lux says, Nen plays when she's getting laid. Lex supplied. What? The word came out of me like an arrow. Oh gods, Lex whispers with a crooked grin. Loved it.
Yeah,
So,
Chef's kiss.
yeah, I get the most surprising comments on whose characters are people's favorites. There's a whole subset of people that really love Tug the Necromancer and just want to know more about Tug. And Tug is really just a frat boy with access to magic, which is terrible. So yeah,
That is a great way to describe him as a
Yeah.
character.
Didn't you describe the necromancers? No, you described the wizards as essentially people that are in the friend zone. They never get anything.
they're incels, yes. So, yeah.
I mean, but if you think about it, that kind of explains why they're so strange,
But they are,
almost in a way.
exactly.
So I wanted to ask real quick. I know after one of the major scenes where they are done with the main mission, so Cord's done his stuff and his scheme played out, and they're going to like a burial site. Is that based off Nordic stuff, or is that because it kind of reminded me of I can't remember Draugrs. I'm thinking of Skyrim, but
Yeah.
Oh,
It was more of a yeah. I could definitely see where you get that. It was more of a D&D thing though for me.
yeah.
The whole tomb exploration and trying to find the magic item and of course with it being Cord, everything just goes to shit. So
Skyrim's a good way to describe. That's what I had in my
Yeah.
mind too during that.
Me too, especially the Thieves stuff, because one of my favorite I don't know if it's a quest or just like a storyline in that game is the Thieves Guild, and I just pictured them all very funny. I think there's even a thief named Lux in,
I think so. Yeah.
and I just pictured her the way I picture her in the game with like white hair. And,
yeah. Funny enough, I had always kind of pictured Lux as the statuesque blonde that you see in the old D&D art with this, throwing magic around, that sort of thing. But, obviously in her case, she's a little bent. But yeah, there's a lot of video game. There's a lot of role-playing game influence. The old empire that they're raiding in that section is actually called the Tevint Empire, which is a reference to Dragon Age. So there's if I sat down and tried to find every single reference in that book, it would take me months. I cannot recall everything that I put in there.
but there's so many books that I've read that have these little, but yours were so subtle, and I could really appreciate it. Where other books I've read, I've been like, oh man, this is just like too much. But this was just like a I don't know. I just was like thinking, is this like Skyrim? Is this like D&D or So it's nice to hear you say.
Yeah.
I just want to say hi really quickly to Joshua and Marcella.
Josh.
Hey, Josh.
Hey.
He's a great author and better person. So thanks for dropping by.
Great author and better person.
I don't know why he hangs out with us.
I don't either, but I enjoy his company. So. I'm sorry, Stacey, did I interrupt you again?
No, I was just laughing at what you said about Joshua.
Oh. Yeah. Great guy. I did have a question about the pop references, the popular culture references in the book. What were your inspirations for those? Did you pick out certain things that fit in the story, or did you try to keep it? You just kind of just throw things in.
Yeah, I mainly anything that struck me as funny that I would run across, from everything from Seinfeld to Friends to 30 Rock to just and if I thought I could fit that reference or that joke into the story, I adjusted it, and then As a matter of fact, there's the scene with the undead head that Cord digs up, and he's taken along with him. Well, the whole conversation about being a rabid anti-deadite, that's actually a bit from Seinfeld. So there's a whole thing there, but there are references all over the place in that book that I've grabbed from movies and TV and books and all kinds of things. Not to say that the book isn't River of Thieves by itself, but it's a mishmash of everything that's ever really been in my head or stuck with me. So
I thought it was pretty clever that it fit in the story. There's a few music references too that I enjoyed.
Yeah, there's actually in Thieves War there's a whole section on Bon Jovi and, about how Bon Jovi has become this for whatever reason in Cord's world, it's this whole cult, and they follow the cult of Jovi, and there's this statue, and one of their litanies is, on a steel horse I ride, that sort of thing. And of course, Cord is completely disgusted by this whole thing, so he decides to tear it down. But
Oh man.
We have to read that book.
Yeah. Good.
And the magic system, how tough is it to create a magic system from the ground up? Is it fun, or is it kind of, do you have to make sure that everything matches or everything balances out?
yeah, I mean, it's got to have. So, magic systems are a weird sticking point for me. I prefer soft magic, but not in the way that everybody complains about soft magic, where you can just use it to solve plot holes. I think all magic should have a rule system, but you don't have to tell everybody every step of those rules. Soft magic can be soft magic without, and still stick to its own logical internal consistency, without going overboard one way or the other. Not like in Neuroska Groans, it's hard magic. The stones are definitely hard magic, but we don't over-explain it, so it takes on the appearance of soft magic. But it definitely has rigid rules, and it adheres to those rules. So yeah, creating a magic system can be kind of a pain. I do enjoy it. The one I'm creating right now for a book I'm working on is almost like a quantum entanglement sort of system. So you have one item, and then you create copies of that item, and whatever happens to any one of those items happens to all of those items, which can be really unpleasant for anybody bearing all of those items. So,
Depending on what they're made to do.
right. Well, in one case, there's a nail that's been inscribed with runes, and it's actually driven into the chest of the prisoner. And so the prisoner, if they die in working the fields or whatever, are resurrected. The downside to it is nobody else wants to use that stuff, because every time they die, they experience somebody else's trauma. So it's like penance. They're constantly experiencing penance with every death. So
Wow,
Sounds dark.
that sounds great.
it's very dark.
Yeah.
And yes, that's actually in the book. So,
Nice.
Definitely gonna have to read the second book.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was a Jovi when I was younger, in my old
Oh no.
teenage days.
Oh no.
It's so funny too, because my son is he's 16 now, but he's really been into Bon Jovi for a long time.
I failed as a parent.
Which I'm like, sweet, cool. But I try to expose them to lots of different things, so they're not just stuck in this, I don't know, this era of whatever is coming out.
he needs some nice Flesh God Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Oh, you hear all kinds of stuff.
I'm terrified.
I think Stacy mentioned that there's no info dumps, and you learn the world through the character. Was that intentional, or is that something that you try to avoid? Something like big info dumps?
Yeah, that was absolutely intentional. I hate info dumps. I don't think. I think the world should be described through the eyes of the characters. I don't think we need somebody to step outside and say, well, here are the mountains and here's the wheat fields and here's, you know, the river. When we have a person living in that world and we can see what they see. So, and it just feels, for me, it feels that much more natural. You know, if they're passing through the wheat fields, if they're in the mountains, if they're on the river, we can see all the things that they see.
I was trying to describe to somebody the difference between telling and showing, and I gave them a example, and I said it's the difference between, you know, you're reading a book and the narrator says that is sharp, and instead the narrator going and cutting themselves on something. You don't have to tell the reader that that's sharp. The act, what happened, tells you that that thing was sharp, and that's the difference between telling and showing.
Yeah.
And
oh, sorry.
no, I was just going to say you experience more through the character getting cut. There's so much in that one little thing versus that's a sharp. All you know is that it's sharp. You don't know anything else about it.
Yeah. And I don't necessarily think infodumps are always bad. It's just a matter of how they're done. You know, if you're going to dump 3 pages on me, I'm probably not going to read those 3 pages. I'm just going to skip them. But if you can do it in an interesting way, you know, it's in a book a character finds, or it's, you know, that sort of thing, or maybe it's a flashback or a memory or whatever. Those are always a little more. All right, now I have context for it instead of just blah.
Yeah, I appreciate an author when they can trust that I don't need to be spoon-fed, you know, like they trust that I can get it. I got it. Okay. You know, so I love, that was one thing I loved about this book too, is nothing spoon-fed. I just enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There was an author once that, and I don't remember who said it, but the quote is, you know, if you trust your readers are smart, they're going to reward you for it. And that's, you know, let's see. I mean, I'm going to assume that they don't know everything that's in my head, but I can definitely put that layer of respect in there. So,
Yeah.
I think it's also important to leave something to the imagination, right? The reader feels more involved in the story. They're kind of helping create that world in their own head, filling in the blanks, than if you just tell them everything. So there's nothing left to the imagination. And a lot of times, I don't know about you guys, I'll have a character totally described to me, and they'll still look different in my head because I've already made the characters in the shape that I want them to be in. And so it's not always, description isn't always necessary. I read this thing about Jane Austen. Brandy, I know you're reading a lot of, you realize in most of her books, she never describes what the characters look like. She never says what color hair they have. You know that they're a well-off woman, so they're clean. They're probably, you know, wearing fancy outfits. They're not, you know, walking around barefoot. But you don't need to know those things. And so you can kind of create the character's visual appearance yourself. And but there are some writers who choose to give you all of that information, aka Robert Jordan, and it ruins. I should say ruins. For me, it ruins it because now I no longer feel like I'm a part of the reading process or the story. I'm just reading a book. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's also fun when we all get together, and when there's a book like that and we haven't been spoon-fed everything, it's our different experience with it. And it's so fun to talk about how we experience different things, you know. So that's one thing I've really gotten out of even this discussion. Like just the things that you guys find are funny that I forgot about, but we're just
Yeah, I think it's. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the one that surprises everybody is when people ask me what Cord looks like. Well, he's Carl Urban from The Boys.
Love that.
I have to look up.
I could totally see that. I could totally see that. I think you're the first author I've ever talked to that actually can cast one of their characters.
Oh, I know others that are way better at that will really. I mean, they're in depth. I know who Cord is. I'm not really sure who Nen is. Lux is Lux is statuesque and blonde, and Rec is just a big dude. So the Rock would work for Rec or Batista or any of those guys. So.
Or Momoa, Ashley.
Yeah.
Or Momoa.
And that's one of our favorite games that we play. How would you cast? And it always, Ashley, it's Jason Momoa for everybody.
I don't know. I just looked
Jason
up. I just looked up Carl. I think he's my new Jason Momoa. Oh, it's getting a little hot in here.
You haven't seen The Boys, Ashley?
I saw one episode and then we stopped watching it for some reason. I don't know what the deal was, but I've seen a couple episodes.
It's great.
Yeah, he's in some other good movies too. Dread is pretty good too. Joshua says it definitely takes a talented writer to world build without info dumps. Oddly enough, some of the most prolific and popular writers are known for their overuse of exposition to build up their worlds.
That's true.
So, off of what we've been talking about, is it worth trusting your readers to make those connections, or do they want to be spoon-fed? Because a lot of the popular authors are, they do overuse it. So that's an interesting question that we've talked about before a little bit.
I think it's, I think it comes down to the individual author. How do you? For me, I don't want to assume that anybody's just going to not know anything. It's very difficult for me to think that anyone out there is just going to come at this book like it's a wall and just keep beating their head against it. So, I think there's a difference between fleshing out your world and beating your reader over the head with information. So.
Well, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. I think we're different readers, though. In this group, I'm not saying we're, superior, although we are. But the more popular writers are usually traditionally published. We've talked about this many times, that traditionally published usually tries to market to a vaster, more general demographic. And so they have to make it a easier read. And a lot of times that means telling and less showing. So as a self-published writer, Clayton, do you feel less pressure to have to, write to a larger demographic? It seems to me that you just kind of write what you want to write, and hopefully there'll be people out there that enjoy it. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, I kind of take the punk rock approach to writing. I'm going to write what I want to write, and if you like it, that's cool. If not, then whatever. So
I love that. I think some of the best books I've read since I started BookTube have been self-published, because you could totally feel that this is what the author wanted, and there's no pressure from, traditional publishers or even, big editors who have this more sterilized version of how books should go. Yeah. And that myself, as I've been reading since I was very young, and I got to the point where I swear off genres because I got so sick of the same formula. And so fantasy is actually new for me. I've only been reading for about 15 years. I know that doesn't sound, or that sounds like a lot, but for me it's not. And then I started getting bored of fantasy because it's the same tropes, the same formula. And now that I'm reading self-published, there's a whole new world of authors out there that are like, look, that formula doesn't always have to be the way things go. And I love it. And so I'm so blessed that Clayton, you decided to write this book so that we could read it, because I certainly enjoyed it. And Steve and Brandy, thank you for getting me to read it.
It's all him. He makes me. But I'm always like, man, another one, Steve. And then I read it and I'm like, oh my gosh, so good, this book. And he'll walk in and I'm like reading or listening, and I'm like, this book, man. So I never regret like reading what he makes me read. I just like to give him crap.
I have read very little traditional public fantasy lately. Mostly, if I'm reading traditional books, it's either nonfiction or it's horror. But as far as fantasy, there's so much good self-published fantasy. It seems like it's getting better every year. It's kind of, I mentioned Crystal Matar earlier. Her debut novel is Legacy of the Brightwash, and it's, oh Christ, it's way too good for a debut novel. It's ridiculous. And I don't think anybody's.
Can you say the title again? I'm sorry, I had to write this down.
Legacy of the Brightwash. Of course, we got guys like Michael Fletcher out there working, and his work is amazing. Mike Shell, Iconoclast.
I'm reading that right now.
Yeah, that's a fantastic series. So there's so much stuff out there, and it's you would almost never have to go back to traditional. It's just done so well.
I've seen this.
That's Crystal Matar, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I found it on Goodreads. Okay.
I think I've seen that.
No, there goes my TBR.
Yep.
It's a TBR. What is it? So many books.
This has been a recommendation to me as Grimdark and Romance. Is what the comment here was.
Yeah, if you like romance at all levels of heat, she's the person to go to. She writes.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, Count of High Ladies. We know what our next book is going to be.
And
that is so true, Joshua.
My wallet takes the biggest hit. Let me tell you. And
Yeah,
she was like,
I will.
"Are you on Amazon? You need to get off Amazon." Or what did you like? Stay off of Amazon.
Oh, because he was on a stream the other night and he was like, "I'm ordering that right now," and I'm like, ready to text him, "No more." But
You changed the password, Brandy.
She
I
tried
bought
that already.
something on Amazon this morning. There's always books in the cart because he just leaves them there hoping I'll just buy them.
They just magically show up.
They
Like,
do
maybe they
magically
sent an
show up
accident.
because I gotta order my protein powder or something, and there's a book in the cart, and I can't take it out. It's like a kind of a jerk thing to do. So they just show up here.
Yeah, I have been limited to a certain number of books a month now too. So
We're all grounded.
We're all on timeout. What books have you read lately, Clayton, that you've enjoyed, other than Legacy of the Brightwash?
So I've been reading a little bit of nonfiction. I read Guns Up by Johnny Clark, which is it's the account of an M60 gunner in Vietnam and his whole tour there. I read. Hold on one sec here. I need to figure out why my phone isn't anywhere near me.
Oh. Blooper reel.
Yep, that's normal.
My phone was stolen by a tiny human.
So I've read that. Skullsworn, Brian Staveley. I'm currently reading The Royal Art of Poison and Devil of Nanking. So those are the four most recent books I've read here. But
Devil of Nanking. I've heard people talk about that. Is that a historical fiction or is that nonfiction?
it is billed as a thriller. It is thriller horror, and I get very strong Ninth Gate sort of the Wasp Factory crossover vibes between it. It's by Mo Hader, I believe. But it's about a young English woman who goes to Tokyo to find the remnants of this video of the rape of Nanking. And it's very kind of dark and twisted, and I'm about 30% in, but every time I pick that book up, I have a very hard time putting the book down. So
Oh God, here we go.
Hence why I closed my Goodreads window.
Yep.
And there
Put it
goes Steve. Adding it.
Amazon cart.
I'm never gonna be able to cut him off.
And then Skullsworn is another one that was just amazing. Brian Stavely, and it's just the language. The prose is beautiful. The story is very well done. There's romance and intrigue and violence and a little bit of everything in there, and it's just probably one of the best books I read this year.
Wow.
Well, there goes our plans for the year.
I know, right?
Josh, I'll say Steve was
Yeah. So we're going to have to read Thieves War next.
So Thieves War is an interesting beast because I was shooting for the same level of levity, but I think I was very angry when I wrote that book. So I'm not sure I came off as funny or really that I just wanted to punch everything in the book. So I haven't really had any complaints from readers on it, but it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell when you're that close to the work and
good reviews.
Yeah.
So far. I'm excited.
It's a great, huh?
I'm ready to read whatever.
It's a great cover. Yeah.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I have to know what happens next because of the way it ended. So I was happy to see that there was a sequel when I finished it, because the ending is kind of like there's this underlying feeling of finality about what happens to Cord and Lex and what's the wreck, but you're not sure because you've been fooled before. So I'm excited.
So it is a duology. The second book pretty much answers everything. It tells you, So it is another Cord adventure though, and it's a little more traditional narrative than the last one, whereas in River of Thieves is pretty much 3 vignettes kind of tied together. Thieves War is one tight book, so.
I kind of felt like it was episodic. I don't know if you guys felt that way. Like every time they went to a different place, there was a whole nother heist, I just felt like I was reading one episode after another. I really liked that because it was almost like a good place. Like, okay, this is a good place to pause for tomorrow and I'll watch the next episode.
Yeah.
I just really, really liked that.
I might be imagining this, but I'm pretty sure there's a little hint at the very end of River of Thieves where, she's falling out and she maybe possibly sees something. So I got the impression that there might be like something happening, but the way that you finish the book off, I'm like, wait a second.
Mm-hmm.
Is this it? Like, you're not gonna tell me more?
Yeah, I was telling Steve, I'm a little confused, but I think I'm supposed to be, maybe.
I was about to be all up in your DMs, like, excuse me, sir. Where's the rest of the book?
So what Nen sees at the end is definitely a fox going to fight. So
I just want to mention, I know we haven't talked about kind of like the religious type of stuff with the different gods and everything, but that's another thing that I thought was really fascinating, especially when you're meeting, gosh, I can't remember his name now, but the fox, with the eyeball. Yes. And that was just so cool.
Yeah, the Pantheon and the Velt is not really interested in what people are doing except for Kamar. And of course, Kamar is interested in how can he help himself or how can they help themselves. So,
was it the sword that talks? I can't remember. Yeah.
Dirk. So
Yeah.
I purposely named that sword after Dirk Ashton. So
I thought that was hilarious. That was fun. I like talking inanimate objects. It's like one of my favorite tropes in fantasy. And the fact that that was done so like unironically, it was great. And then how Cord makes other things talk by pretending other things are talking to him. Oh my god. I was like, this dude is so nuts.
It's definitely a gang I would definitely partake in. Sign me up immediately. I'm not sure about the whole like resurrection thing. Like I could probably pass on that, but
right.
I'll be the cat's caretaker when Shrek is gone.
Yeah, I mean somebody's got to watch him.
Exactly. Like you can't just let those babies roam around.
Well, Clayton, I want to thank you for coming by to chat with us, and thanks to Stacy and Ashley, and of course, Brandy, for reading the book with me. It turned out to be really fun, and thanks for taking time out of your Saturday to come and talk to us about your book and hear our silly questions.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for such a fun ride. It was so
Yes.
Well, thank you for
Before
having
we
me.
leave, though, I have to know what your shirt says.
fun.
Oh,
I've been wondering that.
So all it says is if you can read this, you're standing too close, which is pretty much my personal philosophy.
Anyway.
Are you a non-peopler as well?
Oh,
I don't people.
deeply non-people.
Oh, man. All right, sorry to get us off track. I'm trying to close that, but I was like, before you go.
It's I was curious too.
And now I'm on Amazon ordering that shirt. I would wear
Man,
that.
I can make it for you. Okay.
What does your shirt say? Your coffee shirt?
Oh, it says I like coffee and maybe 3 people. And I'll wear it to the store.
I'm one.
People are just like,
Perfect.
what is wrong with this person?
I'm not one of them, so
Yeah, we know, Steve.
yeah, I know.
You can. It doesn't spoon feed. You could just use your imagination as to who the 3 people are.
Leaves you guessing.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Clayton, for coming by, and we'll be bugging you to come by and chat with us again if you want to after we read the next one. So
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me on.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. So go check out Ashley's and Stacy's channels, and check out River of Thieves and all of Clayton Snyder's work. We are fans, so
Yes.
we're gonna keep on reading.
You're gonna have extreme FOMO if you don't read River of Thieves. I'm just telling you right now.
Cool. I hope everyone has a good Saturday, and talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.